Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abe Friedman. I serve as the Intergovernment Director for the Borough President. It's a special day here in Borough Hall, and when I say special, it is always a great day when we can highlight these public servants that went beyond the call of duty. For those who know, the Borough President for the past 7 years have honored exceptional individuals, firefighters, teachers, officers, or just civilians that always go out of their way to save a person's life or just to highlight a good deed so others can learn and see how beautiful this borough is. And every day there are stories that we can talk about. Today is a special day. We're going to hear from the Borough President how these two, and I promise them I'm not going to call them rookie officers, but they are not a long time on the job. And just, it wasn't a typical day. And for a police officer, it's never a typical day. So without further ado, I would like to call up the Borough President, Eric Adams, to honor the two officers.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Abe. And I just want to take a moment before we get into the official ceremony just to acknowledge our bishops that are here, Bishop Jameson Figueroa and Bishop Seabrook. And I want Bishop Seabrook, if he can come forward before we get started. He has been doing an amazing job of bringing law enforcement and community together and how important it is. And I just really want to thank him for, during those most turbulent moments over the summer, how he has just continued to be a voice of reason, using the power of the pulpit. And, you know, part of this issue that took place involved Edward James, a caretaker at the Glorious Church of God in Christ, who was the gunshot victim. And I stood with him and the other bishops after the shooting, and we would talk about that case in detail. But right now, I'm going to ask Bishop Seabrook.
Good afternoon. Well, we're here today to say that there is a working relationship between New York finest and the clergy. And one of the things that we want to do is to bring tranquility, transformation, and togetherness to our city. Our city needs healing. It's going to take first the clergy coming out of their pulpits and then working with the New York City Police Department to bring, guess what, harmony once again. They're servants of God. We thank God for what they've done in terms of saving life, apprehending criminals, and keeping our streets safe. So we're welcome here today to honor them and to keep praying for them. Please, we are the real leaders, the clergy. We're the salt of the earth and the light of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, bishops, for joining us here today. And this is just a real significant moment because so many people want to create a divide between effective policing and the communities that they patrol and protect. And we are at a place where we want to build a new ecosystem of public safety that would include both police officers, clergy leaders, CMS teams, everyday people playing a role in keeping our streets safe. And so I really want to thank the continuation of great leadership in Brooklyn North, first under Chief Madry. After Chief Madry's departure, we were really blessed in having the new chief of Brooklyn North, Chief Judith Harrison. It was right here on these steps that we walked together during an anti-violence march, where she shared this amazing story of our two officers who we are honoring today, both part of the 81st Precinct. So joining us today is two fine officers, Officer Jake Hoynan and Officer Monica Swaskov. Both of them just did an amazing job, and we want to just show our appreciation of how they responded to the calls of service and taking proper, proactive police action. This is what we talk about all the time, and these are the stories that we rarely hear and understand how dangerous the job is and how these officers, in spite of what has happened in the city, they continue to be proactive in removing firearms off our streets. And so both Officer Jake and Monica, they're both assigned to the 81st Precinct. They responded to a 911 call of a male shot on the evening of August 31st at 363 Halsey Street. They found Mr. James, Edward James, a caretaker at the Glorious Church of God in Christ, with several gunshot wounds. The officers, who between them have 4 years of service, immediately administer aid to the victim. Mr. James, unfortunately, he passed away from his injuries, but their professionalism and calm under pressure was instrumental in bringing the perpetrator to justice, who was involved in the shooting, because of how they handled themselves upon the initial interaction with the victim. The next day, these officers, in an unrelated operation, proactively addressed a traffic infraction and conducted a car stop. After a brief investigation, both officers placed the driver under arrest for possession of a loaded firearm. In the process, removing a gun, while they did that, they removed a dangerous gun from our street and making our community safer. That loaded firearm they removed from the street was not used to carry out one of these countless number of shootings that we have witnessed throughout our previous year. And so, thank you, Abe. This is a photo of the loaded firearm that they removed from the perpetrator who had the firearm in his vehicle. This gun would not take the life of an innocent person. This gun would not take the life of a 1-year-old child. This gun would not be added to the large number of firearm stats that we're witnessing. Because these officers took proper action, this gun would not carve a highway of death through our communities, and we cannot thank these officers enough. The actions highlight the everyday heroism of our NYPD officers. This has been a challenging year for our city. Gun violence has skyrocketed throughout New York, and Brooklyn has borne the brunt of the increase, the countless number of shootings that we've witnessed in our city. And when you have officers like these two fine officers here being proactive in their approach to public safety, it sends the right message. And we wanted to pause today and say thank you for your heroism. Thank you for taking a firearm off our street that would not take the life of an innocent child. And so on behalf of all Brooklynites, I want to give our two officers these proclamations. On behalf of Brooklynites, I salute Officer Monica Swazcob of the 81st Precinct, located in the Bushwick community, for responding to a 911 call on 31st of August at 5 p.m. at the Glorious Church of God in Christ, assisting and aided that was a victim of a gunshot injury that later expired, but the next day took proper police action and ensured that a firearm was removed off the streets of the city of New York and borough of Brooklyn. And I want to clearly, as a former police officer, thank them for their appropriate action, proper proactive investigation to ensure our city was safe. And her partner, Officer Jake Hornun, I want to also give him a proclamation for his actions as well, and just thank both these officers for a job well done. They are truly the spirit of New York City finest to protect the people of the city of New York. And so we're going to call them up, but first I want to bring up our great chief of Brooklyn North, Chief Judith Harrison.
Thank you, Borough President. Thank you, Rabbi Friedman. Thank you to the members of the clergy behind me that always have my back. But I especially want to thank the two officers from the 81st Precinct. I couldn't be prouder of these two officers. As the Borough President alluded to, about 4 years of service between them, right? Less than 5 years each of them, 22 months Officer Swarzkopf has. But it's proactive policing for our communities to make sure our communities are safe. When I found out about that shooting at the church on Halsey Street, one of the things I did, which is what I normally do, I look at body-worn camera footage. And when I saw footage of their efforts to save this man's life, the way they spoke to him, the way they asked him, almost begged and pleaded with him, stay with us, stay with us. They talked to him. They got, which they didn't know at the time, was a dying declaration. Who did this to you? And he answered them. And it was that information from that question that led us to find the perpetrator of this heinous act, arrest him, and bring him to justice. When I had looked at that body-worn camera footage, I reached out to their commanding officer and I said, I'd like to meet these two officers. I know they come in tonight. Have them meet me in my office tonight. And he said, well, I'll be honest with you, they wrapped around from last night. They're still working. I said, they're still working? Oh, yes. They got a gun collar last night. So I brought them to my office to speak with them and asked them what the circumstances were. And this is how you know when communication works, and communication works for the greater good. Because what I've been telling my commanding officers is that there are a tremendous amount of guns in cars. Well, Inspector Glenn went to roll call and spoke about guns in cars and the need for car stops. These two officers saw somebody commit a traffic infraction, and what did they do? They initiated a car stop. That's what we want. That's exactly what we want. So I'm very proud to stand here as a commanding officer of Patrol Borough Brooklyn North, because I get to work with the men and women in Patrol Borough Brooklyn North who care about their community and go out every day to make a difference in their communities. So once again, thank you, sir, for listening to me. We had a conversation while we were walking, and I brought this to his attention, and he did not hesitate, and said to me, I will honor them with a proclamation. He didn't hesitate. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for acknowledging the efforts of the New York City Police Department, and thank you all for being here.
And I forgot to announce the executive officer that's here, Melody Robinson.
He's not here.
Oh, the Melody?
He's
Okay.
replaced by the lieutenant.
Okay, the lieutenant. Yes. So we want to bring up our two officers, Jake and Monica. So come up for your proclamation. Congratulations, great job, well done. One of you want to speak, or both of you want to speak?
I think we're okay.
Lieutenant?
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
You're very shy and modest.
Yes, good afternoon. Just wanted to say thank you to these fine officers. Inspector Glenn, the CO of the 81st Precinct. Amazing guy, like he said. He speaks to these guys daily. He instills inspiration in everybody. We're very proud of these officers, especially known as Jake and, Brad and Angelina Jolie, if you guys didn't notice. And once again, we're just thankful and glad to get these guns off the streets.
Thank you, thank you. Bishop, can I come down? Because I think there's something significant here. This is what public safety looks like. women of color in the supervisory ranks, bishops, rabbis, politicians. This is what public safety's future looks like. We can't just say it's the job of the police, it's the job of the preachers, it's the job of the politician, it's the diversity of this department. Many people who do bad things in the city don't want to see this coming together of community and police. We are not going to allow that to happen. Our voices of coming together will be louder than those who want to tear us apart. Because we have proactive, smart, compassionate policing, we have one less gun on our street that can take the life of an innocent person. And so I commend these officers, I commend their supervisors, I commend our new chief of Brooklyn North, I commend our bishops and all who have come together to say, our streets belong to the safety of the people who live here, and we're going to stand together to protect our community. Thank you very much. Thank you.